This video and the information contained herein are provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. The content does not constitute professional financial, legal, career, or immigration advice. Scholarship requirements, deadlines, and funding availability are subject to change at the discretion of the awarding institutions and governing bodies. While every effort has been made to ensure the accuracy of the historical trends and case studies presented, viewers must conduct their own due diligence and verify all information directly with the official university or program websites. The creator of this content is not an official representative of any educational institution or government agency. Participation in the scholarship application process involves significant competition and does not ensure a specific result. All financial decisions regarding international education should be made in consultation with qualified professional advisors. The American Dream is currently priced at exactly $348,000. That is the projected total cost of attendance for a four-year undergraduate degree at several top-tier private universities in the United States when you factor in tuition, housing, health insurance, and the rising cost of living in major metropolitan hubs. For most families across the globe, this figure is not just a hurdle, it is a total blockade. There is a pervasive and controversial narrative in the international education sector that the United States is only open to the children of the global 1%. You have likely heard that unless your parents are high-ranking government officials or industry titans, a degree from a prestigious American institution is a statistical impossibility. However, the data reveals a much more complex and startling reality. While the sticker price of American education has skyrocketed by over 100% in the last 20 years, the pool of institutional and federal aid has quietly expanded to keep pace with the global talent war. There is a hidden secondary market of funding, where some of the most elite institutions in the world are essentially bidding for the brightest minds from every corner of the planet. We are witnessing a historical trend where universities are moving toward need-blind admissions policies for international applicants, effectively decoupled the ability to pay from the right to learn. But here is the open loop that most consultants will not tell you. The majority of this money goes unclaimed or is misallocated because students apply for the wrong types of funding at the wrong time. If you think that a high GPA is the only thing that matters, or if you believe that only Ivy League schools offer full-ride packages, you are operating on outdated information that could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt or worse, the loss of your academic future entirely. Today, we are initiating a masterclass designed to bridge the gap between that $300,000 sticker price and the reality of a $0 tuition bill. This is not about finding small $500 book grants or one-time community awards that barely cover the cost of a flight to New York or Los Angeles. This session is a deep dive into the top 5 high-impact scholarships that provide comprehensive financial coverage, often including living stipends, travel allowances, and full tuition waivers. This video solves the most significant barrier to entry for the millions of students who possess the intellectual capacity to thrive in the American system, but lack the liquid capital to bypass the F-1 visa financial verification process. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand the mechanics of need-based versus merit-based aid, the strategic importance of the CSS profile versus the ISFAA, and how to position your profile to appeal to the specific institutional priorities of the highest funding bodies in the United States. We are moving beyond the surface-level advice found on forums and diving into the administrative logic used by admissions committees to distribute billions of dollars in annual aid. To understand why these scholarships exist, we must first analyze the current landscape of the United States higher education system. The U.S. remains the world's leading destination for international students, with over 1 million individuals enrolled in its colleges and universities. Historically, these students have contributed over $40 billion annually to the American economy. However, as global competition for talent increases from countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, American institutions have had to pivot. They are no longer just looking for students who can pay full price. They are looking for yield-protected candidates who will increase the university's research output, prestige, and global alumni network. This shift has created a massive opportunity for students from emerging markets. For example, case studies from the last 5 years show a significant uptick in full funding packages for students in STEM fields and social sciences from regions that were previously underrepresented on American campuses. The financial reality of the United States is that price is a marketing tool, but net cost is the actual transaction. Many universities maintain a high sticker price to signal prestige, while simultaneously discounting that price for nearly 80% of their student body through various forms of aid. For an international student, navigating this requires a level of tactical precision that domestic students often take for granted. You are not just competing against the student in the seat next to you, you are competing against the global average. We will be examining the specific data points that determine how much a university is willing to buy your enrollment. We will look at institutional endowments which in some cases such as Harvard, Yale, or Stanford exceed tens of billions of dollars. These endowments are specifically earmarked to ensure that the university can attract the top 1% of global talent, regardless of their financial background. Furthermore, we must address the visa gatekeeper problem. To obtain an I-20 form and subsequently an F-1 student visa, you must prove to the United States government that you have the immediate funds to cover at least the first year of your education and a credible plan for the subsequent years. This is where most dreams end. Without the scholarships we are going to discuss, most international students cannot meet this legal requirement. The scholarships in this list are specifically chosen because they provide the official documentation needed to satisfy consular officers. We will break down the distinction between government-sponsored programs, like the Fulbright program, and institutional programs like the Robertson Scholars or the Clark University Global Scholars Program. Each of these has a different ideal candidate persona. Some value leadership and community service above all else, while others are purely focused on high-level academic research or artistic mastery. The promise of this deep dive is to provide a roadmap for the strategic international applicant. We will explore the step-by-step details of the application cycles, which often begin 18 months before the actual start date of the semester. We will look at how to leverage the Common App to maximize your visibility to financial aid offices and how to craft a personal statement that addresses your financial need without sounding like a plea for charity, but rather a compelling investment opportunity for the university. We will analyze how historical trends in U.S.-China, U.S.-India, and U.S.-African relations are currently influencing which regions are seeing the highest influx of scholarship capital. This is a masterclass in global education economics as much as it is a guide to finding money for school. By the time we finish this 10-part series, you will have the exact framework used by top-tier educational consultants who charge thousands of dollars for this very information. You will be equipped to navigate the complex web of the CSS profile, understand the nuances of need-aware versus need-blind admissions, and identify which of the 5 major scholarship categories fits your specific profile. The goal is to move you from a position of uncertainty to a position of informed, strategic action. We are beginning with the foundation of the top 5 most prestigious and high-value awards available today, starting with the program that has historically transformed the lives of thousands of global leaders. The program that stands at the pinnacle of this global educational hierarchy is the Fulbright Foreign Student Program. Established in 1946 through legislation introduced by Senator J. William Fulbright, this is not merely a financial grant. It is the premier diplomatic tool of the United States Department of State. As we move into the 2026 academic cycle, the Fulbright program remains the gold standard for international exchange, operating in over 160 countries and providing approximately 8,000 grants annually. However, to understand why this is our number 1 pick, you have to look beyond the prestige and into the granular financial and legal structure that makes it accessible to the average high achiever who lacks personal wealth. Imagine a candidate named David. It is early 2026, and David is a mid-career professional in Nairobi, Kenya, with a background in urban planning. He has a solid academic record, but his liquid assets are nowhere near the $60,000 required for a Master of Science at a school like the University of California, Berkeley. For David, the Fulbright program acts as a complete financial bridge. Unlike many other scholarships that only cover a percentage of tuition, Fulbright is designed to be comprehensive. Historical trends show that the program typically covers full tuition, a living stipend calculated based on the specific cost of living in the host city, accident and sickness health benefits, and round-trip airfare from the home country to the United States. The living stipend is particularly significant. In 2026, the cost of living in American urban centers has seen a notable increase, but Fulbright adjustments ensure that a student in a high-cost area like New York City receives a higher monthly allowance than a student placed in a mid-sized college town like Lincoln, Nebraska. This ensures that the student can focus entirely on their research and cultural exchange rather than working under-the-table jobs, which would be a violation of their visa status. However, the application process for Fulbright is a marathon of administrative precision. It does not begin with the American university, It begins in David's home country at the Binational Fulbright Commission, or the local U.S. Embassy. This is a critical distinction. You are first competing against your fellow citizens before you ever face an American admissions officer. In 2026, the priority themes for Fulbright have shifted heavily toward climate resilience, public health infrastructure, and the ethical governance of artificial intelligence. If David's application for urban planning focuses on sustainable, AI-driven public transit, his profile aligns perfectly with current diplomatic priorities. The step-by-step journey for a 2026 applicant involves a two-stage selection process. Stage 1 is the national review. This includes a rigorous analysis of two primary documents: the personal statement and the study or research objective. The personal statement is not a resume in prose form. It is a narrative explaining the candidate's character and their potential as a cultural ambassador. The study objective, on the other hand, must be a highly technical and focused document outlining exactly why the United States is the only place where this specific research can be conducted. If David cannot articulate why a Kenyan university cannot provide the same resources as a U.S. institution, his application is statistically likely to be rejected during the first round. Once a candidate passes the national interview, they move to Stage 2, the placement process. This is where the Institute of International Education, or IIE, takes over. A common misconception is that a Fulbright scholar chooses their university and then gets the money. In reality, the IIE acts as a high-level placement agency. They take David's profile and negotiate with 4 or 5 different U.S. universities to secure tuition waivers. This is why Fulbright is so powerful. The U.S. government uses its diplomatic weight to encourage universities to waive fees that they would otherwise charge a private student. This administrative leverage is what allows the program to support so many individuals from diverse economic backgrounds. We must also discuss the legal framework of the J-1 Exchange Visitor Visa, which is the specific visa category required for Fulbright scholars. This visa comes with a unique and often misunderstood provision known as the 212(e) 2-year home country physical presence requirement. From an educational and diplomatic standpoint, this rule exists to prevent brain drain. It requires the scholar to return to their home country for a total of 2 years after their program ends before they are eligible to apply for certain other U.S. visas, such as an H-1B work visa or a green card. For David, this means he must take the knowledge he gained in Berkeley and apply it to the infrastructure of Nairobi. While some see this as a restriction, historical trends suggest that Fulbright alumni who return home often rise to the highest levels of government and industry, further increasing the value of the network. Case studies of successful 2026 applicants show that the interview phase is where the most qualified candidates often fail. The interview panel, usually a mix of American diplomats and local alumni, is looking for something specific: adaptability. They might ask David how he would handle a situation where his American peers have a fundamentally different worldview regarding property rights or urban density. The goal is to see if he can represent his culture with dignity while remaining open to American perspectives. The potential outcomes for a Fulbright scholar are far-reaching. Beyond the degree, you gain access to a global directory of over 400,000 alumni, including dozens of Nobel Prize winners and heads of state. This network is a lifelong asset that provides professional doors that money simply cannot buy. In 2026, the digital alumni platform has become a hub for international research collaboration, allowing a scholar in Jakarta to work seamlessly with a former cohort member in Chicago. As we look at the data, the acceptance rate for Fulbright varies wildly by country. In some nations, the ratio of applicants to grants is 10 to 1. In others, it can be as high as 200 to 1. This is why the strategic positioning of your application is non-negotiable. You must prove that you are not just a student, but a strategic investment for the United States government. You are a bridge between two cultures. But what if you are looking for something that doesn't require you to return home for 2 years? What if you want a program that is tied directly to a specific, elite university and offers even more specialized leadership training? There is another scholarship, often referred to as the Rhodes Scholarship of the South, that provides a level of funding and private mentorship that even Fulbright cannot match. It is a program that targets a very specific type of leader, and its application process is one of the most unique in the world. If you think you have the leadership profile to influence global policy, you need to understand how this next award operates because the deadline is closer than you think. In the next part, we are going to break down the mechanics of a scholarship that pays for everything and gives you a lifetime seat at one of the most influential tables in the United States. The Robertson Scholars Leadership Program represents a paradigm shift in how elite American institutions cultivate global talent. While the Fulbright program focuses on diplomatic exchange, the Robertson program is built on the philosophy of collaborative leadership across two of the most prestigious research universities in the world, Duke University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. This is not just a scholarship, it is a 4-year leadership laboratory. As we move through the 2026 election cycle, the program has evolved to address the hypercomplexities of a multipolar world, looking for individuals who can navigate different institutional cultures simultaneously. Imagine a student named Leo from Sao Paulo, Brazil. It is the fall of 2025, and Leo is preparing his applications for the 2026 intake. He is a high achiever with a deep interest in bioethics and public policy. For a student like Leo, the Robertson program offers a structural advantage that no other scholarship can replicate. If selected, Leo does not just attend one university, he becomes a hybrid student of both Duke and UNC. He spends his first year at one campus, his second year at the other, and has full access to the faculty, libraries, research facilities, and student organizations of both institutions for all 4 years. Historical trends indicate that this cross-campus residency creates a unique cognitive flexibility in scholars, allowing them to synthesize the private university intensity of Duke with the public service mission of UNC. The financial package provided by the Robertson program is comprehensive, effectively removing the economic barrier to entry for international talent. In 2026, the potential outcomes for a Robertson scholar include full tuition, room and board, and most mandatory fees. But the depth of the funding goes much further. The program provides 3 summers of fully funded domestic and international experiences. This is where the deep dive masterclass in leadership truly happens. Case studies of previous scholars show that these summers are often the most transformative part of the undergraduate experience. The first summer, known as the community summer, typically involves scholars working in a rural or urban community within the United States that is vastly different from their own. For Leo, coming from the metropolis of Sao Paulo, this might mean spending 8 weeks in a small town in the Mississippi Delta or an Appalachian community in West Virginia. The goal is to strip away the ivory tower insulation and force the scholar to engage with the ground-level realities of American life. Step by step, the scholar is integrated into a local nonprofit or government agency, tasked with a project that requires empathy, listening, and collaborative problem-solving. This is not a vacation. It is a rigorous test of a scholar's ability to lead without formal authority. The second summer is the exploration summer. This is an international experience where the scholar identifies a global issue and designs a project to address it. In 2026, these projects are increasingly focused on the intersection of technology and human rights. Leo might find himself in a tech hub in Tallinn, Estonia, researching digital citizenship, or in Nairobi, Kenya, analyzing the impact of mobile banking on rural women. The program provides the funding and the logistical support, but the scholar must demonstrate the initiative to build their own global network. The third summer is the professional summer, which focuses on high-level internships in the scholar's chosen field. This could involve working at a major multilateral organization like the United Nations in Geneva, a leading think tank in Washington, D.C., or a cutting-edge biotechnology firm in San Francisco. By the time Leo reaches his senior year, he has a resume that includes high-impact work on 3 different continents and a deep understanding of the American social fabric. The application process for international students in 2026 is distinct and requires surgical precision. Unlike many institutional scholarships that are automatically considered during the admissions process, the Robertson program requires a separate, dedicated application. This application is due early in the cycle, often by mid-November of the year preceding enrollment. The 2026 prompts are designed to peel back the layers of a candidate's psyche. They do not ask about your grades or your SAT scores. Those are assumed to be at the top of the range. Instead, they ask about moments of moral courage, times when you failed and what you learned, and how you define the concept of selfless service. A critical step-by-step detail for international applicants is the interview phase. If Leo's written application passes the initial screening, he moves to a virtual interview with a panel of alumni and staff. If he passes that, he is invited to the finalist selection weekend. In 2026, this is a multi-day, high-stakes event that involves group simulations, individual interviews, and social interactions. The selection committee is looking for the Robertson profile, a combination of intellectual curiosity, heart-led leadership, and the ability to build bridges between disparate groups. They are looking for the person who, in a room full of brilliant people, is focused on bringing out the best in everyone else rather than asserting their own dominance. Data from the last decade shows that the Robertson program is one of the most competitive in the United States, with an acceptance rate that often hovers around 1%. However, for those who are selected, the return on investment is astronomical. The Alumni Network is a lifetime seat at an influential table. Robertson alumni are currently serving as Rhodes Scholars, Marshall Scholars, leaders in the World Economic Forum, and founders of disruptive social enterprises. In 2026, the program has doubled down on its alumni mentoring component, pairing current scholars with professionals who are 20 years into their careers, providing a direct pipeline into global leadership roles. For an international student, the Robertson program also solves the legal and logistical nightmare of the F1 visa. Because the scholarship is so well established, the financial certification process is streamlined. The university's international office issues the I-20 based on the full funding letter from the Robertson office, which is gold standard documentation for U.S. consular officers. This removes the proof of funds hurdle that prevents so many brilliant minds from even applying. However, there is a catch. The Robertson program is specifically for undergraduate students. What if you have already finished your bachelor's degree and are looking for a way to break into the most prestigious graduate environment in the world? What if you want to be at the heart of the Silicon Valley innovation engine? With every resource of Stanford University at your disposal, there is a program founded by a legendary Nike executive that has redefined graduate education in the 21st century. It is a scholarship that looks for the restless and the brave, and its funding package makes it one of the most sought-after awards on the planet. If you are ready to pivot from leadership in the South to the epicenter of global technology and entrepreneurship, you need to know how to crack the code of this West Coast powerhouse. In the next part, we are going to dive into the program that has become the ultimate signal of future global impact, where the application process is as much an introspective journey as it is a professional one. The program that has redefined the landscape of graduate education in the 21st century is the Knight-Hennessy Scholars at Stanford University. To understand the gravity of this award, you have to look at the architectural and financial scale behind it. In 2016, Phil Knight, the co-founder of Nike, and John Hennessy, the former president of Stanford and chairman of Alphabet, launched this initiative with a $750 million endowment. As we operate in the 2026 academic cycle, this endowment has matured into the largest fully endowed, university-wide graduate fellowship in the world. This is not just a scholarship that pays for a degree. It is a permanent community of global problem solvers positioned at the epicenter of Silicon Valley. Imagine a candidate named Alex. It is 2026, and Alex is a high-achieving engineer from Lagos, Nigeria, with a vision for decentralizing renewable energy grids across sub-Saharan Africa. Alex is not just looking for a Master of Science in electrical engineering. He is looking for the social and political capital to scale his ideas. For a student like Alex, the Knight-Hennessy Scholars, or KHS, provides a level of immersion that is unparalleled. If selected, Alex receives full funding for up to 3 years of graduate study at Stanford. This includes the full cost of tuition, a generous living stipend that accounts for the extremely high cost of living in Palo Alto, and an annual grant for academic expenses such as books, research materials, and local transportation. But the 2026 financial reality of attending Stanford as an international student involves more than just tuition. Historical trends show that health insurance and international travel are often the silent killers of a student budget. KHS addresses this by providing a one-time relocation stipend for new scholars and a travel grant to cover one annual return flight to their home country. This ensures that a scholar's focus remains on their multidisciplinary leadership training, rather than the stress of fluctuating exchange rates or the rising cost of transatlantic flights. The application process for KHS is widely considered one of the most intellectually demanding in the world because it requires two completely separate, yet perfectly synchronized applications. Step 1 is the standard application to the specific Stanford graduate program of your choice, whether that is the School of Medicine, the Law School, the Graduate School of Business, or any of the university's world-renowned PhD or master's programs. Step 2 is the dedicated Knight-Hennessy application. Here is the strategic trap where many international applicants fail. You must be admitted to both. If you are accepted into Stanford but rejected by KHS, you must find alternative funding. If you are accepted by KHS but rejected by your Stanford department, the scholarship is voided. This dual-track system requires Alex to manage 2 sets of deadlines, typically falling in early October, and 2 sets of recommendation letters that must speak to different aspects of his profile. The KHS application itself is a masterclass in self-reflection. In 2026, the selection committee has moved even further away from traditional metrics, focusing instead on 3 core criteria: independence of thought, purposeful leadership, and a civic mindset. They are looking for what they call the restless and the brave. To evaluate this, they use 2 unique components that Alex must master. The first is the video introduction. This is a 2-minute recorded segment where Alex must introduce himself to his future cohort. Case studies of successful 2026 scholars show that those who treat this like a formal interview often underperform. The committee is looking for authenticity, humor, and a glimpse into the person behind the GPA. They want to see how Alex thinks on his feet, and how he navigates the complex intersection of his Nigerian heritage and his global ambitions. The second unique component is the list of 8 things the committee should know about you. This is not the place for professional accolades or academic awards. Those are already in the resume. This is the place for the weird, the personal, and the profound. One successful 2026 applicant used this space to discuss their obsession with traditional weaving techniques and how it influenced their approach to coding architecture. Another spoke about a specific failure in a community garden project that taught them more about leadership than any corporate internship ever could. This level of vulnerability is a historical trend in KHS selection because the program is built on the belief that great leadership requires deep self-awareness. Once the initial written and video components are reviewed, a select group of finalists is invited to the Immersion Weekend in Palo Alto. In 2026, this is a multi-day event where candidates participate in group challenges, individual interviews, and social mixers. The goal is to see how Alex interacts with a room full of people who are just as brilliant and ambitious as he is. Is he a collaborator or a competitor? Does he listen more than he speaks? The committee is looking for the person who will add the most value to the Dinning House community. Dinning House is the physical home of the Knight Hennessy Scholars on the Stanford campus, a stunning piece of architecture where scholars from all disciplines gather for the Global Leadership Series. Here, Alex might find himself having dinner with a former Secretary of State, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, or the CEO of a major tech conglomerate. The potential outcomes for a Knight Hennessy Scholar extend far beyond the degree itself. They enter a lifetime network of individuals who are committed to cross-disciplinary collaboration. In the 2026 global economy, the most pressing problems, from pandemic preparedness to the ethical alignment of artificial intelligence, cannot be solved by engineers or lawyers alone. They require a synthesis of perspectives. A KHS scholar in the medical school is encouraged to collaborate with a KHS scholar in the School of Education and another in the business school. This is the secret sauce of the program. It breaks down the silos of the traditional university system to create a new type of global leader. For an international student, the KHS also provides a significant legal advantage. Because Stanford is one of the most well-resourced institutions in the world, their Bechtel International Center is exceptionally adept at handling complex F1 and J1 visa situations. The KHS funding letter is a powerful document that effectively fast-tracks the financial verification process required by the U.S. government. However, applicants must be mindful that KHS is primarily for graduate students. It does not fund undergraduate degrees. As we look toward the future of global education, programs like Knight Hennessy are setting the standard for what a scholarship can and should be. It is not just a financial transaction. It is an investment in a specific type of human capital. But what if you are a younger student, perhaps still in high school or in the early stages of your undergraduate journey? What if you are looking for a program that doesn't just fund your education, but actually guarantees a path toward social mobility and community transformation in the heart of the United States? There is a program that targets the most underserved regions of the world, providing a full-ride experience at some of the most prestigious public and private universities in the country. It is a program that looks for those who have faced significant adversity and emerged with a commitment to give back to their home communities. In the next part, we are going to explore the mechanics of a massive global foundation that has partnered with elite American institutions to create a pipeline for the next generation of African and global leaders. This program has a very specific set of requirements and a selection process that values lived experience over test scores. If you want to know how to access this multi-million-dollar pool of funding, you need to understand the unique mission of the foundation behind it. The foundation we are discussing is the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program, a multi-billion-dollar initiative that has fundamentally altered the trajectory of international education for students from the African continent and other economically marginalized regions. To understand why this program is a cornerstone of our top 5, you must look at its core philosophy: transformative leadership. While most scholarships seek the student with the highest test scores, the MasterCard Foundation seeks the student with the greatest potential to return home and spark a systemic change in their community. This is a crucial distinction that influences every single aspect of their selection process. In 2026, the program has reached a scale where it supports thousands of scholars across a network of elite partner institutions in the United States, including the University of California, Berkeley, Michigan State University, and Arizona State University. Imagine a student named Kofi. It is early 2026, and Kofi is living in a rural area outside of Kumasi, Ghana. He has spent his high school years volunteering at a local clinic, helping to digitize patient records on a single outdated tablet. Kofi is brilliant, but his family's annual income is less than what a single semester of textbooks costs at an American university. For Kofi, the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program is not just a financial grant, it is a total ecosystem of support. If selected, Kofi's experience begins long before he steps onto a plane. The scholarship covers the cost of his passport, his visa application fees, and even the required medical examinations. This is a level of detail that many other programs overlook, but for a student with zero liquid capital, these initial administrative costs are often the primary barriers to entry. Once Kofi arrives at a partner university, such as Michigan State, the financial package reveals its full depth. Historical trends in the 2026 academic landscape show that the cost of living and technology have become significant hurdles for international students. The MasterCard Foundation addresses this by providing a comprehensive full-ride package. This includes full tuition and mandatory fees, but more importantly, it covers comprehensive room and board. Unlike a standard meal plan, the stipend provided is designed to ensure that Kofi can afford nutritious food and basic personal necessities without ever having to seek off-campus employment, which is often restricted for F-1 visa holders. Furthermore, the program provides a high-quality laptop, all required textbooks, and comprehensive health insurance that covers everything from routine checkups to mental health support, which is vital for students navigating the intense culture shock of moving to the United States. The step-by-step application journey for the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program is unique because you do not apply to the foundation itself. Instead, you apply directly to the partner university. For the 2026 cycle, each university has its own internal deadline, often falling between December and February. This is where strategic international applicants must be extremely diligent. You must satisfy the standard admissions requirements of the university, such as English proficiency exams and academic transcripts, while simultaneously completing the supplemental MasterCard Foundation application. This supplemental section is where you must prove your commitment to the give-back philosophy. Case studies of successful scholars show that the selection committee is looking for evidence of social responsibility. They want to see that Kofi hasn't just excelled in the classroom, but that he has already taken steps to improve his community with the limited resources he had. The 2026 application prompts often focus on resilience and the ability to overcome adversity. In his essays, Kofi must articulate a clear vision for his return to Ghana. He cannot just say he wants to be a doctor. He must explain how his medical degree from the United States will allow him to address specific healthcare disparities in his home region. This forward-looking commitment is formalized in a non-binding, but deeply ingrained ethical agreement. The foundation invests in the scholar with the expectation that the scholar will invest in their home country. This is the ultimate goal of the program: to create a self-sustaining cycle of leadership and development. One of the most overlooked benefits of the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program is the go-back provision. Historical data shows that many international students struggle with the transition back to their home countries after years in the American system. In 2026, the foundation has implemented a robust alumni support system that includes career counseling, entrepreneurship grants, and a network of mentors located in the scholar's home region. If Kofi decides to launch a healthcare startup in Kumasi after graduation, the foundation provides the networking and potential seed funding to help that vision become a reality. This ensures that the brain drain often associated with international scholarships is replaced by a brain gain for the student's home community. To maximize your potential outcomes when applying for this scholarship in 2026, you must understand the concept of the holistic review. Admissions officers at institutions like UC Berkeley are looking for the whole person. They are looking for the student who can handle the academic rigors of a world-class university, while also serving as a peer mentor and cultural ambassador. For a student like Kofi, this might mean highlighting his leadership in his school's debate club or his role in organizing a community-wide cleanup initiative. The program also places a high value on gender equity and the inclusion of students with disabilities. In 2026, the foundation has set specific targets to ensure that at least 50% of its scholars are women, and that a significant portion of the cohort includes refugees and displaced youth. The logistics of the F1 visa process are also significantly simplified for MasterCard Foundation scholars. Because the foundation provides a letter of full financial support that covers all 4 years of study, the university's international office can issue an I-20 form with a high level of confidence. When Kofi goes to the U.S. Embassy for his visa interview, he has definitive proof that his education is fully funded by one of the most reputable organizations in the world. This drastically reduces the likelihood of a visa denial based on the 214(b) section of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which often targets students who cannot prove sufficient ties or financial stability. Furthermore, the program offers a specialized orientation program known as the Scholars Summer Institute. Before the fall semester begins, scholars from around the world gather to build a community. In 2026, this has evolved into a hybrid model, where scholars engage in virtual leadership workshops before meeting in person. This phase is critical for building the psychological safety needed to succeed in a competitive American academic environment. Kofi will be surrounded by peers who share his background and his ambitions, creating a lifelong support network that transcends national borders. But what if you are a student who is looking for a program that is not tied to a specific geographic region like Africa? What if you are a high-achieving student from any part of the world, and you are looking for a scholarship that is specifically designed to identify and support the top 1% of global talent for undergraduate study at a single world-renowned institution? There is a program funded by a private billionaire that has become the most prestigious undergraduate award in the United States, providing not just full funding, but a direct pipeline into the most influential graduate schools and corporate boardrooms in the world. This award is so competitive that its selection process is often compared to a professional scouting operation for future world leaders. In the next part, we are going to break down the mechanics of the most exclusive undergraduate scholarship in the United States, where the application process starts years before you even reach the 12th grade. If you want to know how the global elite prepare their profiles for this specific award, you need to understand the data-driven selection metrics that the foundation uses to pick its winners. The Jefferson Scholars Program at the University of Virginia stands as the definitive example of a scouting-based merit award in the United States. While other programs rely on a massive pool of random applicants, the Jefferson Scholars Foundation operates through a rigorous, multi-tiered nomination system that mirrors the way professional sports teams identify elite talent years before they ever enter a stadium. As we move through the 2026 academic cycle, the value of this fellowship has surpassed $320,000 for international students, covering not just the sticker price of tuition, but every conceivable cost associated with a world-class undergraduate education. This is the program that looks for the total person: the scholar, the leader, and the citizen. Imagine a student named Maya. It is early 2026, and Maya is a senior at a competitive secondary school in Singapore. Maya is not just a student with a perfect academic record. She is the founder of a regional youth climate coalition and a competitive debater. For Maya, the journey to becoming a Jefferson Scholar did not start with an application form. It started when the Jefferson Scholars Foundation identified her school as one of the elite institutions permitted to submit a nomination. Historical trends show that the foundation maintains a list of over 4,000 secondary schools worldwide that are eligible to nominate one student per year. This is the first hurdle of the scouting process. If your school is not on the list, you cannot simply apply. You must either be at a nominating school or apply through a regional competition, which is essentially the scholarship world's version of an open tryout. Once Maya is nominated by her school in late 2025, she enters a regional selection process that is designed to test her intellectual agility in real time. In 2026, these regional interviews are conducted by committees of dedicated alumni who are trained to look for what the foundation calls the Jeffersonian spirit. This is a combination of fierce academic curiosity and a demonstrated commitment to the community. Step by step, the committee evaluates Maya's ability to defend her ideas, her emotional intelligence, and her potential to contribute to the University of Virginia's unique culture of student self-governance. Case studies of successful 2026 scholars reveal that the regional interview is not about reciting a resume. It is about engaging in a high-level intellectual dialogue about the pressing issues of the mid-2020s, from the ethical integration of neural networks in education to the future of global trade. If Maya passes the regional stage, she is invited to the selection weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is where the scouting analogy becomes literal. The foundation flies finalists from all over the world to the University of Virginia for a 4-day intensive evaluation. In 2026, this weekend involves a series of seminars, written examinations, and social events where every interaction is a data point for the selection committee. The potential outcomes of this weekend are life-changing. Out of hundreds of finalists, only about 30 to 40 are chosen to join the cohort. Those who are selected receive the full cost of attendance, which in 2026 includes tuition, room and board, books, and even personal expenses. However, the true value of the Jefferson Scholars Program lies in its Supplemental Enrichment Fund. This is a separate pool of capital dedicated to the scholars' personal and professional growth. Historical trends show that the foundation invests heavily in 4 specific areas. First is the Outdoor Leadership Program. Before their first year even begins, scholars are sent on a multi-week wilderness expedition, designed to build resilience and cohort cohesion. Second is the Foreign Language and Cultural Immersion Grant. In the summer after their first year, scholars are funded to spend 2 months in a country where they can attain fluency in a new language. For Maya, this could mean intensive Mandarin studies in Shanghai or Arabic in Amman, all fully funded by the foundation. Third is the Career Discovery and Global Internship Program. In the 2026 job market, where traditional entry-level roles are being reshaped by automation, the Jefferson Scholars Foundation provides its students with direct access to a network of alumni who occupy the highest levels of law, medicine, finance, and technology. Maya doesn't just get a degree. She gets a mentor who is a partner at a top-tier law firm or a lead scientist at a major biotech company. Fourth is the Public Service Fellowship, which provides funding for scholars to design and implement a social impact project during their final summer. This ensures that the scholar's education is not just an intellectual exercise, but a platform for real-world change. The administrative logic behind the Jefferson Scholars Program is rooted in the philosophy of Thomas Jefferson, who founded the University of Virginia with the belief that a democracy requires an educated and engaged citizenry. In 2026, this translates into a selection process that prioritizes character over mere test scores. The foundation is looking for students who will not just sit in a lecture hall, but who will lead student organizations, conduct original research, and challenge the status quo on campus. For an international student like Maya, the Jefferson Scholars Program also provides an unparalleled legal and logistical safety net. The University of Virginia's International Students and Scholars Office is one of the most efficient in the United States. Because the Jefferson Scholarship is a full funding award from a prestigious foundation, the F-1 visa process is exceptionally smooth. The financial certification on the I-20 form shows a total cost of $0 for the student, which is a powerful signal of credibility to U.S. consular officers. Furthermore, the foundation provides a dedicated staff member whose entire job is to support the scholars' transition to life in the United States, helping them navigate everything from social security numbers to local banking. As we look at the historical trends of Jefferson scholars, the long-term impact is staggering. Alumni go on to win Rhodes, Marshall, and Fulbright scholarships at rates far exceeding the national average. They are admitted to the most competitive graduate programs in the world, often with their own dedicated funding. For a student in 2026, being a Jefferson Scholar is a permanent mark of distinction that signals to the global elite that you have been vetted through one of the most rigorous selection processes in existence. But there is a specific category of students for whom even the Jefferson Scholars Program might not be the right fit. What if you are a student whose primary focus is not on traditional leadership, but on high-stakes, cutting-edge scientific research? What if you are looking for a program that is specifically designed to fund the next generation of Nobel Prize winners in the fields of medicine, engineering, and the physical sciences? There is a scholarship program that operates out of a legendary institute on the East Coast, which provides a level of research funding and lab access that is usually reserved for tenured professors. This program is looking for the disruptors of the scientific world, and its application process requires a level of technical mastery that is truly daunting. In the next part, we are going to dive into the program that has become the ultimate launchpad for the scientific minds of 2026, where the selection process involves presenting your original research to a panel of the world's leading scientists. If you believe your ideas could change the face of human technology, you need to understand the mechanics of this high-octane research fellowship. The high-octane research fellowship we are analyzing is the MIT Presidential Graduate Fellowship. To grasp the significance of this award, you must first understand the unique ecosystem of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, an institution that operates more like a global research sovereign than a traditional university. In 2026, MIT continues to lead the world in patents, startups, and technological breakthroughs, and the Presidential Fellowship is its primary instrument for securing the world's most promising scientific minds. This is not a broad-based scholarship. It is a hyper-targeted investment in individuals who have already demonstrated the capacity to disrupt existing scientific paradigms. Imagine a candidate named Arjun. It is the spring of 2026, and Arjun is completing his final year of an integrated master's program in robotics at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur. Arjun is not just a high GPA student. He is a pioneer in the field of soft robotics and has already published 2 papers in peer-reviewed international journals. For Arjun, the cost of a PhD at MIT, which exceeds $80,000 per year in 2026 when factoring in tuition and the skyrocketing cost of living in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is an impossible sum. However, the MIT Presidential Fellowship provides a comprehensive financial package that includes full tuition, a monthly stipend for living expenses, and full health insurance coverage. Historical trends indicate that these fellowships are awarded to approximately 5% of the incoming graduate cohort, making it one of the most exclusive honors in the world of academia. The financial mechanics of the 2026 stipend are particularly noteworthy. Because the cost of living in the Boston-Cambridge area has reached record highs, MIT has adjusted its graduate stipends to approximately $4,500 per month. This allows a scholar like Arjun to live within walking distance of the infinite corridor, without the financial stress that often plagues graduate researchers. But the true value of the Presidential Fellowship is not just the liquid capital. It is the freedom it grants. In a typical graduate setup, a student is tied to a specific research assistantship or RA, where their funding is dependent on a specific grant held by a professor. This often means the student must work on the professor's project. A Presidential Fellow, however, is funded by the university at large for their first year. This means Arjun has the institutional autonomy to rotate through different labs, such as the Media Lab or the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, also known as CSAIL, before committing to a specific principal investigator. The step-by-step selection process for 2026 is an exercise in departmental scouting. Unlike the Fulbright or the Knight Hennessy, there is no separate application for the Presidential Fellowship. You are automatically considered when you apply to an MIT graduate program. However, this creates a secondary level of strategy. To be a viable candidate, Arjun must first be the top-ranked applicant in his specific department. Historical trends show that departments use these fellowships as yield protection tools to lure the very best candidates away from competitors like Stanford or Caltech. Therefore, Arjun's application must be engineered to make him the most desirable recruit in the room. In 2026, the Statement of Objectives has replaced the traditional personal statement in importance. Arjun's statement must be a technical manifesto. He cannot speak in generalities about his love for science. He must outline a specific, high-stakes research problem he intends to solve. He needs to identify the exact equipment at MIT, such as the specialized vacuum chambers or the advanced 3D printing facilities, that are essential for his work. Case studies of successful 2026 applicants show that those who mention specific faculty members and their recent publications have a much higher rate of being nominated for the fellowship. Arjun must prove that he is not just a student, but a collaborator who will add immediate value to the MIT research output. The technical interview is the most grueling stage of the process. For Arjun, this involves a series of virtual meetings with a panel of leading scientists in his field. In 2026, these interviews often include a live technical challenge where Arjun must explain his thought process while solving a complex differential equation or debugging a line of code in real time. The panel is looking for first principles thinking. They want to see how Arjun reacts when he reaches the limit of his knowledge. Does he guess, or does he use logic to derive a potential solution? This intellectual grit is the hallmark of a presidential fellow. Furthermore, we must discuss the 2026 evolution of the research portfolio. For international students in STEM, a traditional resume is no longer sufficient. Arjun must present a digital portfolio that includes his GitHub repositories, links to his published work, and even video demonstrations of his robotic prototypes. The selection committee uses this data to verify the proof of concept of his ideas. They are looking for high-risk, high-reward profiles, students who are willing to tackle problems that might take a decade to solve, but could redefine the face of human technology. The potential outcomes for an MIT Presidential Fellow are far-reaching. Beyond the PhD, these scholars are often fast-tracked into tenure-track faculty positions or offered leadership roles in the most advanced research divisions of global tech giants. In 2026, the fellowship also provides access to the MIT Sandbox Innovation Fund, which gives students the initial capital to turn their research into a commercial venture. This creates a direct pipeline from the lab to the marketplace, making the fellowship a launchpad for the next generation of billionaire tech founders. For an international student, the legal logistics of being a presidential fellow are managed with surgical efficiency by the MIT International Students Office. The F1 visa process is streamlined because the funding letter comes directly from the Office of the Provost, providing undeniable proof of financial self-sufficiency. Additionally, because MIT is a powerhouse in the American economy, its international students are often in a strong position to transition into an O1 visa, which is reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability, should they choose to remain in the United States after graduation. As we look at the historical trends of STEM funding, the 2026 cycle has seen a massive influx of capital into quantum computing and synthetic biology. If you are a student in these fields, the chances of securing a full funding package like the Presidential Fellowship are higher than they have been in a generation. However, there is a fundamental mistake that thousands of brilliant international students make every single year. They focus so much on the technical side of their application that they completely ignore the administrative and legal nuances that can result in an immediate rejection, regardless of their talent. There are 3 specific, hidden barriers in the American scholarship system that act as a filter, removing over 70% of international applicants before their papers even reach the selection committee. These are not academic barriers. They are structural traps related to the way international credentials and financial backgrounds are evaluated in the United States. If you do not know how to navigate these 3 specific checkpoints, even a perfect GRE score and a published research paper will not save your application. In the next part, we are going to expose these hidden filters and provide the exact framework for bypassing them. We are moving from the what to the how, and the details we are about to reveal are the difference between a rejection letter and a $300,000 scholarship offer. To understand why brilliant international students often fail at the final hurdle, we have to look into the administrative engine of the American university system. In 2026, the selection process is no longer just a human reading a pile of essays. It is a sophisticated, data-driven filtration system designed to manage the millions of applications that flood the United States every year. If you do not understand the 3 structural traps that act as the silent gatekeepers of high-value scholarships, your talent is essentially invisible. The first of these traps is what we call the GPA mistranslation, and it is the primary reason why students from rigorous educational systems in Europe, Asia, and Africa are rejected before their story is even heard. Imagine a student named Elena. It is early 2026, and Elena is applying from Athens, Greece. She is at the top of her class in a demanding national curriculum where a grade of 18 out of 20 is considered nearly impossible to achieve. In her mind, she is a premier candidate. However, when her transcript arrives at a mid-sized American university, the automated credential evaluation software flags her GPA as a 3.5 on the American 4.0 scale. To an admissions officer at an elite institution, a 3.5 is often a non-starter for full-ride consideration, where the average recipient typically sits at a 3.9 or higher. Elena has become a victim of a historical trend, where American institutions fail to account for the grade deflation inherent in foreign systems. Step by step, the solution for a 2026 applicant is to proactively manage the credential evaluation process. You cannot assume the university will do the math correctly. Case studies of successful scholars show that they utilize third-party services like World Education Services, or WES, or Educational Credential Evaluators, known as ECE, to provide a formal course-by-course evaluation before submitting the application. But even that is not enough. In 2026, the most successful candidates include a school profile document, a one-page PDF that explains the grading distribution of their specific high school or university. If only 2% of your graduating class receives a certain grade, you must state that explicitly. Without this context, your 3.5 is just a number that falls below the scholarship threshold, regardless of how much effort it took to earn it. The second structural trap is the need-aware admission loophole. There is a common misconception that all top-tier U.S. universities are need-blind for international students. As of 2026, only a handful of institutions such as Harvard, Princeton, Yale, MIT, Amherst, Bowdoin, and Dartmouth are truly need-blind for international applicants. This means they look at your talent first and then figure out the money. For the other 99% of American universities, the admissions process is need-aware. This means that if the university has two equally qualified candidates, but candidate A can pay $20,000 and candidate B needs a full ride, candidate A will receive the offer every single time. Imagine a student named Marcus from Kingston, Jamaica. Marcus is a stellar applicant for a prestigious university in the Midwest. He fills out the CSS profile, which is the standard financial aid form used by private colleges in the United States. In the 2026 version of the CSS profile, every single asset, from his father's small business to the value of their family home, is scrutinized. Marcus makes the critical mistake of being too honest about his family's emergency savings. The university sees that his family has $10,000 in a savings account and concludes that Marcus does not need a full scholarship, but rather a partial one. Marcus is then placed on a waitlist because the university has already exhausted its limited budget for full-ride international students. The historical trend in 2026 shows that the gap between what a family can actually afford and what the CSS profile says they can afford is widening. To bypass this trap, you must understand the logic of the ISFAA, or the International Student Financial Aid Application. Many universities allow you to use this form instead of the CSS profile, which costs money to send. The ISFAA allows for more granular explanations of financial hardship, such as currency devaluation or local inflation rates that the standard CSS algorithms often ignore. In 2026, providing a narrative statement that explains why your local currency's 20% drop against the US dollar makes tuition impossible is often the difference between a partial award and a full ride. The third trap is the cultural gap in recommendation letters. In many cultures, particularly in East Asia and parts of the United Kingdom, it is considered a sign of integrity and modesty for a teacher to write a balanced, realistic letter of recommendation. They might say that the student is very good but still has room to grow in certain areas. In the United States, this is the kiss of death. American recommendation letters are notoriously hyperbolic. If a teacher does not describe you as the single most impressive student they have encountered in their 20-year career, the admissions committee perceives it as a red flag. Case studies from 2026 applications show that students like Li Wei from Shanghai often fail because their teachers write honest, modest letters. To navigate this, you must provide your recommenders with what is known as a brag sheet. This is a document where you list your top 3 achievements, the specific moments where you showed leadership, and the data points that prove your impact. You are not writing the letter for them, but you are giving them the Americanized vocabulary they need. In the 2026 landscape, an effective letter must use superlatives. It must place you in the top 1% of your cohort. If the letter says you are merely a hard worker, the scholarship committee will move on to the next candidate who is described as a generational talent. Furthermore, we must address the 2026 reality of the proof of funds requirement for the F1 visa. Even if you bypass these 3 traps and receive a scholarship offer, you still face the Department of Homeland Security. Consular officers are trained to look for any sign that you might be a public charge, or that you intend to stay in the U.S. illegally. If your scholarship is partial, and you cannot show the remaining $30,000 in a liquid bank account, your visa will be denied. This is why the scholarships we have discussed in this series are so vital. They provide the comprehensive funding that satisfies the legal requirements of the U.S. government without requiring you to have a massive bank balance. The potential outcomes for students who master these 3 hidden filters are transformative. We are seeing a trend where students from middle-income backgrounds are successfully securing full-ride packages at top 50 universities simply because they knew how to frame their financial data and how to guide their teachers in the recommendation process. They understood that an American scholarship application is a performance of value, not just a report of facts. But even with the right GPA, the perfect financial aid forms, and the most glowing letters of recommendation, there is one final piece of the puzzle. There is a scholarship category that is almost never talked about on public forums because it is managed through private corporate partnerships and specific bilateral trade agreements between the United States and other nations. These awards are often industry-specific, targeting future leaders in energy, aerospace, and finance. They don't just pay for school. They provide a guaranteed internship with a Fortune 500 company and a clear path toward a high-skilled work visa. In the next part, we are going to pull back the curtain on these corporate sovereign scholarships. This is the ultimate insider move for students who want to ensure their education leads directly to a global career. We will break down exactly which industries are currently overfunding international talent in 2026, and how to find these niche opportunities before they are advertised to the general public. In the landscape of 2026, a fundamental shift has occurred in how high-tier education is financed in the United States. We have moved beyond the era where only academic institutions and government bodies provided the bulk of international funding. Today, we are witnessing the rise of the corporate sovereign scholarship model. This is a strategic alliance where multi-billion-dollar corporations, in direct coordination with the United States Department of Commerce and various sovereign wealth funds, are aggressively funding the education of international students in specific, high-growth sectors. To understand this, you have to look at the current talent war in fields like semiconductor manufacturing, quantum cryptography, and synthetic biology. The United States has realized that to maintain its technological edge, it must not only educate its own citizens, but also attract and retain the most brilliant minds from across the globe. Imagine a student named Sarah. It is the spring of 2026, and Sarah is a graduate student in Seoul, South Korea, specializing in advanced lithography and microchip architecture. For Sarah, a Master of Engineering at a school like the University of Texas at Austin or Arizona State University is the ultimate career goal. But the out-of-state tuition and the cost of living in these emerging tech hubs are prohibitive. In previous years, Sarah might have looked for a general university scholarship. In 2026, however, she applies for an industrial fellowship funded by a consortium that includes players like Intel, NVIDIA, and the CHIPS Act 2.0 initiative. This is where the corporate sovereign model differs from everything we have discussed so far. This scholarship does not just offer tuition, it offers a career trajectory. Historical trends show that these fellowships often cover 100% of tuition and provide a living stipend that is competitive with entry-level engineering salaries. But the real value lies in the mandatory internship component. Sarah is paired with a lead engineer at a fabrication plant in Ohio or Arizona. During her summers, she is not just studying. She is integrated into the research and development cycle of a Fortune 500 company. The potential outcomes for Sarah are significant. Upon graduation, she does not just have a degree from a top American university. She has 2 years of experience within the American industrial base, making her an ideal candidate for an H-1B specialty occupation visa, or even an O-1 visa for individuals with extraordinary ability. The step-by-step process to find these opportunities requires a different search methodology than the one used for the Fulbright or the MasterCard Foundation. These awards are rarely listed on general scholarship portals like FastWeb or CapEx. Instead, you must look at the university relations or academic partnerships pages of major tech and energy firms. In 2026, these companies have established preferred partner relationships with specific American universities. If you want a scholarship in aerospace, you don't just look at any school, you look at the specific labs at Purdue or Georgia Tech that are funded by companies like SpaceX or Blue Origin. You are looking for terms like Cooperative Research and Development Agreements or CRADAs. These agreements often contain provisions for funding international graduate students who are working on non-classified, high-impact research. Another critical sector in 2026 is the green energy transition. Imagine a student named Marco from Brazil, who is an expert in grid-scale battery storage. Marco doesn't apply for a standard scholarship at the University of California, San Diego. Instead, he targets the energy research centers that are funded by the Department of Energy in partnership with private firms like Tesla and NextEra Energy. These sovereign-linked scholarships are designed to build a global workforce capable of managing the transition to a carbon-neutral economy. Case studies from 2026 indicate that students from Latin America and Southeast Asia are being prioritized for these awards because their home countries are seen as critical partners in the global supply chain for rare earth minerals and battery components. To secure one of these awards, your application must be framed as a solution to a specific industrial problem. In his statement of purpose, Marco does not talk about his personal dreams of living in California. Instead, he provides a data-driven analysis of how his research in solid-state batteries can reduce the levelized cost of energy for American utility providers. He is positioning himself as an asset to the American economy. This is a radical departure from the traditional needy student narrative. In the world of corporate sovereign funding, the selection committee is not composed of admissions officers. It is composed of chief technology officers and government policy advisors. They are looking for a return on investment. We must also analyze the legal framework of these awards, particularly the 2026 updates to the National Interest Waiver or EB2 NIW. Historical trends show that the United States government has become increasingly flexible in allowing international students in critical and emerging technologies to bypass the traditional labor certification process if their work is deemed in the national interest. Many of these corporate scholarships are explicitly designed to funnel students into this NIW track. If your scholarship is funded by a partnership that involves a federal grant, your legal standing when applying for a green card later becomes significantly stronger. You are essentially being vetted by the U.S. government while you are still a student. For international students, the hidden secret of 2026 is the University Industrial Liaison Office. Every major research university now has an office whose sole job is to manage the relationships between faculty and private corporations. If you are a high-achieving student in a STEM or finance field, your first step should be to email the liaison office at your target school. Ask them which corporations are currently sponsoring international fellowships in your department. Often, these fellowships are underapplied because students are too busy looking at the more famous, but more competitive university-wide awards. By targeting a niche industrial fellowship, you are competing against a pool of 50 people rather than 50,000. Furthermore, we are seeing a trend in 2026 where finance and consulting firms are using scholarships as a pre-recruitment tool for international talent. Companies like Goldman Sachs and McKinsey have established fellowships for international MBA and MPA students that cover the full cost of the second year of study in exchange for a 2-year work commitment. This solves the sponsorship hurdle that many international students face during their job search. The company has already committed to you before you even graduate. The level of depth in these corporate programs extends to the interview process. If Sarah moves to the final round for her semiconductor fellowship, she will undergo a technical interview that mimics a job interview at a top-tier tech firm. She will be asked to solve real-world engineering problems and demonstrate her understanding of the global supply chain. This is not about being a good student. It is about being a professional who is ready to contribute to the American workforce on day one. But what if you are not in a STEM field? What if you are a student in the humanities, the arts, or the social sciences? Is there a way for you to access this level of full-ride funding without being a robotics expert or a quantum physicist? There is one final massive category of funding that remains the most misunderstood and underutilized resource for international students in the United States. It is a category that is available to almost every single applicant, regardless of their major, but it requires a level of administrative maneuvering that 90% of students are too intimidated to try. This is the golden strategy of American higher education. In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to reveal the exact mechanics of the institutional negotiation. We will show you how to take a standard admission offer and turn it into a full-ride package by leveraging the university's own internal yield management algorithms. This is the move that separates the students who pay for their degrees from the students who get paid to get their degrees. If you want to know how to win the final game of financial aid poker, you cannot afford to miss the conclusion of this series. To understand the mechanics of the golden strategy, you must first understand a term used behind the closed doors of every admissions office in the United States: enrollment management. In 2026, universities are no longer just centers of learning. They are complex financial entities that use sophisticated algorithms to predict exactly how many students will accept their offer of admission. This is known as yield. If a university accepts 1,000 students and only 200 enroll, their yield is 20%. A low yield signals a lack of prestige to ranking agencies and, more importantly, creates a massive budget deficit for the institution. This is where your leverage as an international student exists. You are not just a student. You are a data point in a high-stakes game of tuition discounting. Imagine a student named Sam. It is April 2026, and Sam has just received 2 envelopes. The first is from a high-ranking private university in New York. Let us call it University A, which has offered a merit scholarship of $25,000. The second is from a similarly ranked institution in Pennsylvania, University B, which has offered $40,000. University A is Sam's dream school, but the $15,000 gap is a total blockade. Most students in Sam's position would simply give up on University A and head to Pennsylvania. But the strategic international applicant knows that this is the beginning of a negotiation, not the end of the conversation. Historical trends in 2026 show that the average discount rate for private colleges in the United States has climbed to an all-time high of nearly 56%. This means that for every dollar of tuition a university lists on its website, they are actually only collecting 44 cents on average. They are already in the habit of giving away money to ensure their classrooms are full of talented individuals. Sam's goal is to move himself into the category of a yield-protected student. He does this through a formal financial aid appeal, a process that is essentially an administrative reevaluation of his value to the institution. The step-by-step execution of this strategy requires surgical precision. Step 1 is the timing. In 2026, the window for negotiation is extremely narrow, typically falling between the last week of March and the 3rd week of April. If you wait until after the May 1st national candidate's reply date, your leverage vanishes because the university has already filled its class. Sam must act while the university is still nervous about its yield numbers. Step 2 is the preparation of the leverage portfolio. Sam does not just send an email saying he needs more money. He gathers evidence. This includes his official award letter from University B and any new academic or extracurricular achievements that have occurred since he submitted his application in the fall of 2025. Perhaps he won a national math competition or led his volunteer group to a new milestone. In 2026, data is king. If Sam can show that his profile has increased in value since his initial admission, the university has a logical justification to increase his scholarship. Step 3 is the drafting of the professional appeal letter. This document must be addressed to the Director of Financial Aid, not the admissions office. This is a common mistake. The admissions office decides if you get in, the financial aid office decides how much you pay. Sam's letter begins with an unequivocal statement of intent. University A is his first choice, and he will enroll immediately if the financial barrier is removed. This is critical. The university will not give more money to a student they think will just use it to negotiate with a third school. Sam is offering them a guaranteed increase in their yield in exchange for a scholarship match. Case studies from the 2025 to 2026 cycle show that the most successful appeals are those that use pure institutional logic. University A and University B are direct competitors. When Sam tells University A that their rival has valued his talent at $15,000 more than they have, it triggers a competitive response in the enrollment algorithm. The university would rather give Sam an extra $10,000 than lose a high-achieving international student to their closest competitor. However, we must address the hidden risks of this strategy. This is not a guaranteed outcome. In 2026, universities are increasingly using AI to flag students who are over-negotiating. If Sam's tone is demanding rather than collaborative, the university may simply rescind his offer or move to the next person on the waitlist. The tone must be one of partnership. Sam is asking the university to help him find a way to join their community. There is also the reality of the 1042s tax trap. This is a deep dive detail that most consultants ignore. In the United States, any scholarship amount that exceeds the cost of tuition and required books, such as money given for room, board, or a living stipend, is considered taxable income by the Internal Revenue Service. For an international student, this often results in a 14% non-resident alien tax withholding. In 2026, a student who receives a full-ride scholarship of $80,000 might suddenly find themselves owing several $1,000s in taxes to the American government. Sam must account for this in his negotiation. He might ask the university to increase his stipend specifically to cover the tax liability, a move known as grossing up the award. Beyond the initial negotiation, the 2026 strategic student looks at the concept of scholarship stacking. Most high-value institutional awards have a clause stating they will be reduced if the student brings in outside funding. However, many mid-tier universities have changed their policies to allow for a certain amount of external aid to be stacked on top of institutional aid. If Sam finds a $3,000 book grant from a foundation in his home country, he must ensure that University A doesn't simply subtract $3,000 from his existing scholarship. As we conclude this masterclass, the potential outcomes for students who master these 5 scholarship categories and the art of negotiation are immense. We are moving toward a global educational landscape where the price of a degree is a variable, not a constant. Whether you are navigating the diplomatic prestige of the Fulbright, the technical rigors of the MIT Presidential Fellowship, or the corporate sovereign partnerships of the Silicon Era, the common thread is the same: you must position yourself as an investment, not a cost. The United States remains the land of opportunity for international students, but in 2026, that opportunity is reserved for those who understand the administrative and financial machinery behind the curtain. You have the tools, the case studies, and the step-by-step frameworks to bypass the barriers that stop 70% of applicants. The journey from a student with a dream to a scholar with a full funding package is a path paved with data, strategy, and relentless due diligence. But the scholarship is only the beginning. Once you arrive on campus, a new set of challenges begins. How do you maintain your status in a hyper-competitive environment? How do you transition that scholarship into a 6-figure career that allows you to remain in the United States legally? And what are the secret networking moves that international students use in their first 90 days to secure the most prestigious internships? We have finished the search for the money, but the search for the career is a different game entirely. In our next deep dive series, we are going to explore the hidden curriculum of the American Ivy League and how international students are currently outmaneuvering domestic graduates for the most sought-after roles in 2027 and beyond. You have the funding. Now it is time to build the empire.